Welcome to a special edition of the Neckbeard Experience. This one has to do with Miss Piggy. She is the girlfriend of the Neckbeard, commonly known as Wolfbeard. You get to see some of her backstory and what she was like on her own. So get ready for some more cringe from Madame-Macabre, aka Calamity. As a special surprise, I was honored to get Raffaella Viola to reprise her role as Miss Piggy. I want to give a huge thanks to her for doing the voiceover. Without further ado, here we go. Hello again, everyone. It's been a while since I've written. Many apologies, but life is busy and full of other obligations. However, I'm happy to bring to you another entry into the Wolfbeard saga, and that would be about Miss Piggy. I did tease regarding the deeper, darker truths of Miss Piggy. Well, fret not. For today, I'll be discussing our feminine neckbeard friend, so prepare yourself. If you thought Wolfbeard was bad, get ready to meet his female counterpart. Now, if you've already made it through the Wolfbeard saga, you're quite familiar with Miss Piggy and the circumstances under which she was part of my life. But I'll offer a brief recap if you choose to start here with the adventure, though I would recommend starting from the top. Welcome all new adventurers. This is a wild tale that follows a cast of multiple characters, with many dramatic twists and turns that are pretty bumpy, and with a lot of secondhand embarrassment. So please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs safely in the vehicle, and enjoy the ride. First up, we have the star of the show, Miss Piggy herself. She's your typical legbeard, minus the social justice warrior leanings and the hyper-feministic viewpoints. She's pretty much a classic neckbeard model, but gender swapped. Not obese in form, but quite literally breaking the scales into the medical category of super morbidly obese. If one commonly refers to a woman's body shape as produce, such as pears, strawberries, and apples, Miss Piggy, she would be the farmer's prize pumpkin. And I mean no disrespect for thick chicks out there, you work your stuff. But Miss Piggy was not one that you would refer to as voluptuous. Sure, she had a big old booty, but it wasn't poppin', as they say. It was squished flat from excessive sitting on it, to the point where it almost recessed back into her body. Imagine, if you will, Hank Hill, or better yet, a crack in an egg. And there's Miss Piggy's rear end. Although her derriere sank inwards, most unimpressively, she did indeed have some massive knockers. Believe me, she knew it, and she would go on and on about them, as if trying to make me feel bad, and poorly endowed, at a D. Like, okay girl, flaunt your double H's, but the thing is, and I really hate to break the news to you, sweetie, but big old boobies do not have quite the same effect of attractiveness when your gut sticks out farther and your back cleavage is nearly as big as your front. Oh dear, here I go getting catty. My apologies. I tend to not let myself go into the classic bitch mode, but by the time we get to the end of this story, everything Miss Piggy did, you'll understand my powerful saltiness and probably think I should have been more catty. But I digress. Though she wasn't looming with the most powerful BO like a typical neckbeard sports, Miss Piggy had her own special odor. A faint whiff of garbage from her hoarder's den, which was in her living quarters, and an ever-present faint fishiness. She had mousy brown, shoulder-length hair, which was always frizzed due to lack of proper maintenance, and massive freaking eyeballs. No, not like the cute anime-esque ones, or doll-like large eyes. I mean, like freaking huge eyeballs. They practically seemed to pop out of her head, like a frog. She could do these freaky crazy expressions, making them so huge that she can open them ungodly wide. And of course, because she almost never wore makeup, until she started to try to mimic me, she was absolutely terrible at it, whenever she tried. Like with everything, she put the absolute bare minimum baseline effort into her hygiene and appearance. She preferred to save money for food. And no, I am not making a fat joke at her expense. I'm dead serious. This beached whale would spend over $200 to $300 a month on snacks alone. That's not counting groceries. Miss Piggy was also really weird about money. Anyways, along with all of this, Miss Piggy was a super weeaboo. The focal points of her life was anime, fantasy, and Wolfbeard. Speaking of Wolfbeard, he's the next colorful character of the cast. He was a 6'2" tower of obese body odor with sandy blonde hair and facial hair styled not unlike sad Shaggy from Scooby-Doo that tragically let himself go. He always dressed in a filthy golf hat and a shirt depicting wolves howling. For a proper understanding of this absolute treat of a human, I highly suggest that you read the Wolfbeard saga, if you haven't already. But basically, Wolfbeard is connected to this story via Miss Piggy, as he was her fiancé at one time, and he always hung around. And besides this, he was a mega creeper to all females in his proximity, even when they were engaged. Talk about a total dream couple, right? Then you have me. Once again, I'll go by my D&D moniker, Calamity. I am a tall, slender alternative chick, hovering arguably somewhere between 90s and New Goth. Morticia Adams is my life goal. Anyways, so basically having nothing in common with these two, you may be wondering, hey Calamity, why the heck would you even associate with these folks? And though I understand the confusion, let me give new readers a quick rundown of what is covered in the Wolfbeard saga. To surmise, we had been close childhood friends, all the way through grade school. I knew her since kindergarten, and in those wee years, she was quite different. Despite being slightly awkward, which is entirely natural for a kid, she was very sweet and normal. She was also nearly the same build as me for those years, being taller than average, rather slim. The last time I saw her, in the 7th grade, this was still the case. Things did not begin to change drastically until after Miss Piggy moved away. Naturally, we grew apart in these years and lost contact. However, while attending college, I reached out to reconnect, missing my old childhood friend. It was an enormous shock to my system, no pun intended, after I finally met her after all those years and saw the metamorphosis that she had undergone in my absence. That being said, I still wanted to get to know her. At the time, her new appearance and occasional cringy behavior wasn't enough to off-put me, so I decided to reconnect. At the surface, she still seemed like the same kind and funny girl, so I chose to stick around. For the first few months of getting to know Miss Piggy again, she was living in a small hoarder's den. It was a 1-bedroom apartment with her fiancé at the time, Wolfbeard. And for the sake of the new saga, we're gonna fly past the moments mentioned in Wolfbeard and go into brand new territory and beyond. If you haven't already, please check out the original Wolfbeard saga. It'll get you up to speed on all the crap that happened, but for everyone else, let's dive on into it, shall we? So after a long series of wild events, where Wolfbeard made all of Miss Piggy's friends very uncomfortable, and then tried to turn my friends against me for having the audacity to reject him, his web tangled and imploded. Miss Piggy called off the engagement. They were done with one another. I say supposedly, because it really wasn't. Things were not so cut and dry. Anyways, since Miss Piggy and Wolfbeard were supposedly no longer together, Wolfbeard sort of moved back home with his parents. In reality, he still spent most of his waking moments at her apartment. Over half of his belongings still remained, and for the remainder of the lease, Miss Piggy seemingly had no problem with his constant presence. The only exception was when Miss Piggy had her friends over, who had been involved in that past fiasco. Literally everyone flat out refused to go anywhere near the place if Wolfbeard would be around. Begrudgingly, she did accept, though she always tried to guilt trip us about it.
If you guys would just give him a chance to apologize, it wouldn't have to be like this. He feels so badly about what he's done, and he just wants to make it better.
Of course, we'd always wave this away, well aware that the only thing Wolfbeard regretted was not keeping his lies in well enough order and not getting away with it. But regardless of Miss Piggy's quite irritating need to defend Wolfbeard, we managed to compartmentalize it under the annoying quirks that we were willing to live with and keep on with the friendship. Looking back on it, Miss Piggy had a lot of these irritating quirks, many of which we later learned went much deeper than quirks and into toxic behavior. See, the way I've always looked at relationships and friendships is a form of give and take. No friendship is perfect. Everyone has their own little quirks. Everyone. And a successful friendship will rely on finding others who are compatible with your quirks. For example, I know I have a problem with bottling things up. I'll take a lot of crap for a long time and bite my tongue and silently deal with it. However, once I've hit my capacity of bullcrap, I explode and all of my bottled up frustration come pouring out in an epic overreaction. This is also a reference to the verbal evisceration that I gave Wolfbeard at the lake. I know it's bad, and I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to work on better communicating my feelings earlier on and avoid that kind of emotional backup, but it's a struggle. And I know it's a quirk that others might find too much, but my friends are able to handle that quirk. They're able to be calm and cool-headed when I blow my top, so they quickly de-escalate the situation, and it's no harm, no foul. Or there's Lilith, who gets just as spicy alongside me in the fraction of a second, and we end up tag teaming a poor target with a verbal suplex city from hell. And then it's up to Doe to desperately attempt to wrangle in the livid she-dragons. Bless you, Doe. Overall, I find that they get more positive out of our relationship than negative when it comes to dealing with my quirks, so it's a successful friendship. Things tend to go bad when that balance of give and take is disrupted. If your friend has a quirk, or in Miss Piggy's case, multiple quirks that are hard to cope with, and you find yourself not getting enough support in return, solidarity, and joy from the relationship that helps the relationship firmly be planted on the positive side of the scale, it's doomed to fall apart. Friendships and romantic relationships that drain you rather than fulfill you is never worth the time and effort, unless both sides accept responsibility to work on a change. And more often than not, the more toxic the person, the less willing they are to change. Go figure. Anyways, I went on that whole tirade to set up the context. You'll need to understand the full descent and destruction of Miss Piggy's friendship with myself and our mutual friends. It was a slow burn of building quirks and decaying positive net gains, followed by the eventual death of the friendship, and ultimately, how she went from our loving nickname, Min, as in Mindy, for an example, to our manipulative ex-friend Miss Piggy. The first of her deadly sins that damned our friendship was sloth. Miss Piggy struggled with this ever since childhood. You could say it was her original quirk, even back when I was still living near her, and we were childhood best friends. She struggled with this. To put it bluntly, the woman is an absolute slob. I have vivid memories of going to spend the night over at her house as a kid, and her room was always a wreck. And not just a normal messy kid's room, I mean straight up Hoarder's Jr. kind of wreck. Despite having a functional closet and a chest of drawers, I don't think her clothes rested anywhere but the floor. Her mountain of filthy stuffed animals was often mixed in among them, along with other toys and belongings she had. The only saving grace was that her mother did not allow her to eat in her room. So at this point in time, there was no rotting food or garbage mixed in. But that hardly mattered, as despite this, the smell of cat pee and the general stench of poor hygiene was deeply permeated in the very walls of the room. What really irritated me, and was practically another quirk of hers, was that she would use her friends to get around her slothfulness. You see, even at the wee age of 10 years old, whenever I'd go to visit, somehow I'd always find myself cleaning her room for her. There was a combination of tactics as how she accomplished this. For one, even as a little kid, the idea of sleeping in filth piles disturbed me, especially since the family had a bunch of stinky dogs. They ran in and out of the house all day long, covered in mud and untreated fleas, which inevitably found itself into the piles of clothes she had. I'm sorry, but sleeping on flea-infested, wet dog stinky piles of dirty shirts and plushies is a waking nightmare of mine. So rather than accept this fate, I would take Miss Piggy up on her offer to help clean her room. I say that in quotes because when one agrees to help Miss Piggy, it basically meant doing all the work alone while she lounged about and chatted you up. Another tactic in her arsenal was the blame game. She'd blame her younger siblings for messing her stuff up, and that it wasn't her fault, and that she despised living in the filth, but it couldn't be helped. And whenever I or other friends were over, she would sucker them into helping her. I asked her why she didn't just tidy it up herself. She'd hit us with the lamest excuse I've ever heard to this day.
I can't clean when I'm alone. It's too boring. It's much easier when I have company helping me, so I have somebody to talk to.
Sure, girl. It has nothing to do with you wanting someone else to clean up for you while you lounge about on your fat derriere. Right. Anyways, this habit, it only grew with time. By the time she has grown, and in her first apartment with Wolfbeard, she was practically a full-on hoarder, complete with stinky piles of rotting food and stinking garbage. And guess what other behavior she continued? Ding ding ding, that's right. She expected her visitors, her freaking guest, to clean her home when they visited, and she would do nothing. Now mind you, she'd never come right out and demand you to clean it for her, or her slob of a fiancé, but she would pile on the pity really thick, and slowly build to it. Are the guests visibly uncomfortable with the state of the apartment? Better start commenting on how embarrassed you are about the state of things. But both your and Wolfbeard's back are just too bad, so it's so difficult to clean properly. Wouldn't an angel of mercy offer to help tidy up the place to be a godsend? Mind you, she was never able to weasel me to cleaning more than just the sitting room and the kitchen. But damn, some friends had told me horror stories when they helped with the bedroom and bathroom. I won't gross you out with the full spectrum, but let's just say, despite knowing company was coming over, Wolfbeard did not think it necessary to flush, even with rather gruesome deposits, before his mate, guest, was made to attempt to tidy up the bathroom. Sorry to leave you with that lovely mental image, but you get the picture. Anyways, the task that Miss Piggy came to associate me with was being her personal dishwasher, and I will admit, this was probably partially my fault. There had been a time or two, when it came to be dinner time, there was no clean dishes in the entire apartment, or just in general. I was so filled with disgust at the state of the enormous mountain of filthy rotten dishes that I couldn't stand the sight of it, or the smell, so I just started washing them myself. What's worse is that she didn't have a dishwasher, so I have to take it all on by hand. As a result of this, from that day forward, she basically began to expect me to continue washing her dishes every time I visited, and I am not exaggerating when I say this. No joke. Every single time I visited her, I'd walk into the filthy apartment and spot the stinky mountain of soiled dishes, and she would remain beached on her sunken spot on the couch and began to eye me expectingly, all but motioning to the pile with her eyes. If I didn't immediately offer to start cleaning up, she'd start to sigh and to make ever so sad comments. My options were to either get up and power through it, which although it's not my responsibility and it's disgusting, would only take me a short while, after which I could enjoy the rest of the visit in peace. Or I would be forced to spend the next unforeseeable amount of time trying to ignore her incessant sighs and pathetic comments, slowly whittling away at my sanity. I realize in hindsight, the proper choice was to tell her that I wasn't her maid, and I worked too, and that I had my own dishes and responsibilities, so she had no excuse to be lazy. But hey, back at that time, I was younger and a lot easier to manipulate, especially since I was wearing some serious nostalgia glasses when it came to Miss Piggy. I wanted so badly to make our old friendship work again that I intentionally ignored or excused so many things. And I wasn't alone. A lot of our mutual friends also took issues with these things, but we all just sort of excused it. Anyways, this slothfulness never left her. I highly suspect that she's only going to get worse as time goes by, and likely she's up to her eyebrows in filth wherever she is now. But for the sake of the story, that should be more than enough context to start us off. Let's pick up shortly after the great breakup and the fall of Wolfbeard, shall we? After Wolfbeard had been cast out of the tiny apartment and back into his parents' house, and well after the engagement had been called up by Miss Piggy, she realized that she wasn't able to afford to continue to live entirely on her own. Because of this, she began to sniff the air for new victims, like a batch of truffles, aka a potential roommate. That's where Doe comes into play. You see, at the time, Doe had still been living with her folks. She had been butting heads with her mom, as young people often do when they're at that frustrating age of being old enough to leave, but not 100% ready to do so. This made her ripe for the picking for Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy made quick work at whittling away at poor Doe. She emotionally manipulated her and agreeing to room with her after her lease with her old dump was expired. However, as time passed, she became less and less enthusiastic about the idea, as the reality of what it meant to live with Miss Piggy finally sank in. Now mind you, Doe had been around for the initial Wolfbeard shenanigans, But now, since she'd be rooming with Miss Piggy, she decided it would be best to try to bury the hatchet, so to speak, for her own sanity. See, Miss Piggy had insisted on staying close friends with Wolfbeard, and that meant that he was going to, unfortunately, still be around her, or at least to some degree. So attempting to be amiable was necessary. Wolfbeard even made a big deal about apologizing to her for his past behavior. For example, he'd say, "I'm so sorry about my past behavior." By this, I mean he literally trapped her in a car. She was parked at a grocery store, and he was circling her like a shark around a diver in a cage. He all but refused to let her leave, until she finally forgave him.
"I feel so bad that I made a pretty woman so upset.
Move!
I'm not gonna leave unless you accept my apology. You're just gonna have to run me over, just like my heart."
Of course, over the course of his apology, he did not really own up to anything. He simply made excuses.
"I must have misunderstood the signs that I was getting. I'm sorry if you got the wrong impression."
And even more so, he blamed Miss Piggy for all his past behaviors, but wanting the stinking vulture to stop circling her vehicle, Doe finally relented and gave him the forgiveness he desperately wanted.
Fine, you're forgiven.
Unfortunately, however, this would lead to only more ordeals in the future. For the remaining time before Miss Piggy's lease was up, it was as if Wolfbeard never moved out. He was there so often that it hardly made any difference. Except for when I visited. I explicitly made it clear that I did not want him anywhere on the premises, or I would refuse to come. And to her credit, Miss Piggy did make sure to keep him away. However, the same courtesy was not allotted to Doe. Oh no, she sadly had to experience far more. That brings me to the next deadly sin that corroded Miss Piggy's friendships: lust. Oh yes, enjoy that disgusting mental image. As per usual, another one on the house. Anyways, as horrifying a thought as it is, Miss Piggy never stopped lusting for Wolfbeard, even though Miss Piggy swore up and down.
Well, we are just friends.
She even went so far to claim,
I'm asexual, so it isn't a big deal.
However, thinking back, I'm not sure if it was to ease our worries, or simply to gain special points. That's sort of a thing she started constantly going on about, like it was super quirky and cute. Despite this, however, she actively sought relations with Wolfbeard. Doe often questioned her about this, and by definition, if Miss Piggy really was an asexual, she would have never been the one to actively try to convince old Wolfie to bump uglies. And when I say she actively tried, I mean it. She would straight up go shopping for lingerie, and would tell Doe,
"Oh, I'm just trying to seduce Wolfbeard."
I thought you said you were asexual.
Once again, Doe would mention to her that this probably meant she wasn't an asexual, but Miss Piggy would always counter it with,
I have chronic headaches, and I find that the endorphins from making love are the only things that help them go away.
Girl, have you ever heard of ibuprofen? Just saying. Also, again, she's still insisting that they're just friends at this point. The level of desperate that this foolish girl went through to try to win back this nasty sack of beard was straight up pathetic. One method was to throw poor Doe under the bus. See, one night Doe was planning to spend the night with Miss Piggy, and to her dismay, Miss Piggy ended up inviting Wolfbeard over as well. Once again, she figured if she alone couldn't entice him back, that some fresh meat ready for slaughter would work nicely. Now, this is where it gets really uncomfortable, especially when it comes to the sleeping arrangement. I'm not sure how it is with you dudes, but generally, us ladies, we don't mind sharing a bed when it comes to sleepovers. We're not weird about it, and it's an extremely common thing for us. However, throwing a big, sweaty, thirsty AF Neckbeard into the mix, the whole picture suddenly changes. Poor Doe, she found herself in the worst kind of situation. See, not only was Wolfbeard going to be spending the night, but he also expected to be sleeping in the bed with them. So it'd be Miss Piggy, Wolfbeard, and poor Doe. Doe was obviously distressed by this idea.
No!
But both Miss Piggy and Wolfbeard made her feel bad for questioning it, and eventually, she gave in, only with the promise that Miss Piggy,
You have to be in the middle.
so that Doe wouldn't be physically near Wolfbeard. Wolfbeard agreed to these terms, and the rest of the evening proceeded without issue. However, come bedtime, Wolfbeard seemed to conveniently forget his little agreement because he was the first one to rush into the bedroom. And of course, he plopped his fat, sweaty butt directly in the middle of the bed, and he utterly refused to move.
No, I'm sorry, I'm just too comfortable. Once I get in my spot, I just can't move.
This meant that poor Doe was stuck next to him all night. What's worse is that Wolfbeard refused to keep his hands to himself. Doe traumatically recalled the events to me, telling me that how at one point of the night, where she was fairly certain that he was only pretending to be asleep, Wolfbeard clamped his big sweaty hand into a death grip on the outside of her thigh. She wanted nothing more than to move it, but she was terrified if she tried, he'd accidentally move his hand further up in his sleep. So out of fear of this, she had to try to sleep the whole night with this clammy, stinky hand attached to her hip like a confused facehugger. But wait, there's more. If you thought parading around in lingerie as if it was a normal blouse, or offering your friend up as a sacrificial lamb was as far as this thirsty would go, for the sake of her uncontrollable lust, you'd be dead wrong. I think I'll end this entry with one last horrifying tale. With booty fishing. Let me explain. While the last weeks ticked away on the lease of the old apartment, Doe began spending more and more time with Miss Piggy in preparation for becoming roommates. Occasionally, Doe would even bring her along to work. At the time, Doe was a serve processor, which meant the majority of her work was driving all over Kingdom Come, all day. Every now and then, a little company made it a lot more enjoyable. Well, on this particular day, Miss Piggy asked enthusiastically,
"Ooh, can I tag along? It would be so much fun to be just us girls all day."
Doe was fine with it and told her to be ready at a specific time so that she could make all of her serves. Well, the time came along and Doe was waiting out in the parking lot with no sign of Miss Piggy. Irritated, she started texting her, asking her to hurry up and where she was. But the only response that she got was a text saying,
"Wait, I'll be there soon."
Doe was getting more and more irritated as time ticked by, and begrudgingly she still waited for nearly 30 minutes. At this point, Doe is livid, and she's ready to leave Miss Piggy behind. But just at this moment, she comes waddling around the corner, out to Doe's car with a mischievous grin on her face. Not caring whatsoever what it was about, Doe snapped at her.
What the hell are you doing? We were supposed to leave ages ago. Now we're not gonna get back until after dark.
Doe shouted.
"Sorry."
Giggled Miss Piggy, so she was clearly not sorry by the tone in her voice.
"But Wolfbeard called last minute, and he needed my help."
What could Wolfbeard need help with that's so important that you made me late for work?
Doe barked angrily. At this, Miss Piggy grinned only larger.
"He was curious what it felt like to have his prostate stimulated, so he asked me for help."
The color drained from Doe's face as she recalled this. That's right. Miss Piggy held up Doe from going to work so that she could snap on a glove and poke around in her just friend's arsehole in the shower. What makes it worse is that she went into detail, announcing as if it was some great joke that clearly Wolfbeard hadn't voided his bowels before the process began. I'll let you imagine that. Well, that was some of her colorful behavior that really ended our friendship, and I hope I never see her again. Thank you very much for joining me for this edition of the Neckbeard Experience, the story of Miss Piggy. This looked like it was going to go into a saga, but she never got it finished. I don't really have much hope that she's going to get it finished because there's only one story there and it was 2 years ago. Regardless, I thought it was worth sharing because I thought it was pretty good. She's a great writer, so she's still active on Reddit if you want to check her stuff out. I'll have a link in the description. She's also a YouTuber too, so You can check out her stuff. She's really good. She covers a story that I don't about Wolfbeard. I'm pretty sure that I've got a link to it. I'll see if I can find it. If not, you could probably search her channel and she specifically mentions it. So she's a great author, narrator. I definitely recommend checking her out. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons. Thank you all very much for commenting. I really enjoy reading them. It gives me a lot of motivation to keep going. Please like, share, and comment, especially comment. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more. I try to put out as much content as possible. I try to do 3 videos a week. One of them being creepy, the other 2 being funny. I should have already covered one this week. It should have been out Wednesday. This should be Friday. From time to time, it might be quite a bit shorter, so it's not so stressful. But even if it's shorter, I'm going to put as much effort into it as I would anything else. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Again, thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Dallas, signing off.